Okay, we're mid-project here, wiring up the battery switches. I'm going to keep the aftermarket Blue Sea System Dual Circuit Plus 5511 Echo battery switch that I put in when I put in their SI ACR start interrupt automatic charge relay. And then we're going to keep the distro panel circuit breaker, anchor windlass circuit breaker, of course, and the engine DC power shutoff, which is OG from Catalina. And that gizmo there is a low voltage disconnect switch. How I'm going to leave those in play with this mess of wires. I've got this large 2-aught cable which comes to this lug. This switch has 4 lugs, and this is the number 2 side, and then there's one in there and one right here, which is the number 1 side for the start battery. This big 2-aught cable here comes over to this 300 ANL fuse holder, or there's a 300 amp ANL fuse in there, and then this cable right here that I just made is going to connect from the fuse holder to the positive terminal on this 8D battery from Battleborn. And then you see there the ground cable will connect there, and that's the only thing that's going to be connected to the battery. That goes to the shunt, and then goes to the back side of this wall is the large DC bus bar for the negative. This switch, so essentially this cable here, this is hot all the time because it's wired directly to the 300 amp fuse and the positive battery on the lithium. Thus I have the bilge feed wire connected to that. The bilge runs off of this switch set up here. It's got its own circuit breaker, and then I can have it in auto or manual with a little light that tells me if it's running. So that will remain hot, and then you see there's a second line coming out of there. That is for the Catalina's OG old school analog battery tester. I can go battery 1, battery 2, and test the voltage of either individual battery, as I guess this wire right here that goes to the second lug is directly connected to the positive terminal of the start battery. So in essence, this back here is the positive terminal of the gel battery, which is switched and goes to this lug, which comes over this excessively large jumper, goes to this DC shutoff, or just an inline shutoff valve, and that shutoff switch, that goes to the, right now this big cable is connected directly to the starter, and there's a jumper wire that connects that lug on the starter to the output of the alternator, which I will be removing and running that alternator directly to the 12 volt positive bus bar. After it's switched, so with the lithium in the on position, these large 3 cables are being serviced. One of them goes in here, goes to the positive bus bar. I'll show you that. This second one comes into here. This goes to the distribution panel, which is this setup here, and buried up inside there I have the low voltage disconnect. This cable goes to the low voltage disconnect. I'm going to leave that in play, which will protect the lithium battery, not let it go below. The highest I could set that was 12.0. So if the refrigerator or any of the lights or anything that's connected on the distro panel draws the lithium battery down to 12.0, that low voltage disconnect will kick in and shut this off before the BMS has a chance to do it, I suppose. And then this large cable here goes to the second circuit breaker, and that's the windlass that feeds out to the windlass. So the windlass is circuit protected, the DC is circuit breaker protected, and this large cable goes to, let's take a dive back here. That large cable goes right here to this 600 amp rated bus bar, which I've just put in, and then I put this as a Blue Seas bracket that I bought after making a copper one that I wasn't confident would have the amp load. This goes to another 300 amp ANL fuse block, which runs along this cable and connects to the inverter charger. So hooked to shore power, power's coming in from here, and or if I'm running the inverter, power's coming through that 300 amp fuse and connected off of here. This is the solar power. I'm going to update that with some larger, more appropriate wiring here shortly, I'm sure. And then that top lug will be where the alternator connects, the alternator output connects, and or I'll stiffen the Maybrew 12 volt air conditioner when we get to that. This block back here is the 12 volt negative bus bar. The one on the far right that you see there is coming in from the shunt. The 3 black cables are some OG cables. The one marked engine goes to the engine block, as that is all grounded and connected there. One of those black cables goes to the start battery, and the other one is currently the negative for the 12-volt distribution and the original 12-volt grounding, I should say, of the vessel. That little yellow cable goes over here to this guy, which is a battery monitor, and that's power that's stiffed off of there. Not on the fuse side, but that fuse is intended to protect the inverter. That's what we got going so far.